Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the one and only XCN. Now, you know me, you know that I am super high on this project. I do believe it is going to do fairly well this cycle. Let's just jump right into the technical analysis and then let's just look at some other data. Of course, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, that Xcn has been in a pretty narrow, steep trend line for some time, right? For some time, pretty much we could say ever since I guess July 23rd, we've just been selling off. We failed to go up higher and higher, and we've just been in this narrow trend sell. But look, ladies and gentlemen, right? We can see that the other day we did form a doji candle. Now, if you're not familiar, a doji candle could be a sign of a reversal, okay, which is a obviously very good sign because we actually do need to start reversing and we do need to perform well at least by the end of the week to make sure that we have confirmation of us possibly going to the upside, okay? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, right, if we go to the weekly, ladies and gentlemen, we remove all of the unnecessary data and we also remove the wicks. What I'm talking about is us practically getting sandwiched in. We over here have had nice bottoms at 0.0087. We had bottoms at 0.012. And we had another bottom right over here at 0.014 practically, right? We have these bottoms and we can see last week we closed just a little bit above 0.014. We closed at 0.0144. So it was higher, right? It was higher by a couple of percent, but it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it was higher. Now, the reason why this is important is because, ladies and gentlemen, the last thing we do want on the weekly is to print a candle close below this last weekly candle. Okay, because the thing is, we are running out of space on the downside. We cannot afford to have any candle close down here. And that is just a reality, right? We can't, because if we close down here, we close lower than the last previous candle. But since we don't have any more space, we would also close below this low, which would just be pretty bad for us. However, we could, as long as we just kind of close above it, even by a couple percent, we're still in the race of potentially bursting to the upside. Now, look, this is also important because you do have to know that we are getting squished from both sides. We can see the floor is getting raised, but the roof is going smaller and smaller, which means we have more and more, we have less and less space to kind of wiggle around. And eventually, Xcn does need to decide. Now, like I said, yesterday was beautiful in terms of its candle close because we can see overall the selling pressure has been generally fairly weak the last few days. Yeah, sure, Tuesday a little bit, but nothing crazy. We can see Wednesday already is a doji candle, is a reversal. Plus, technically, this could also count as a support. So I'm really looking to see for Xcn to start reversing, right? I'm really hoping Xcn does reverse. And also another thing that's very important to mention, these type of very steep, narrow trend lines, they don't last super long, right? They'll last most like 2 weeks, max three, but overall they don't last long because this type of strict narrow price action is, it's not meant to last long, and that's just reality. So I'm really hoping to at least see some type of sideways movement or at least a burst to the upside. Now, if we do get a daily candle close above 0.0144, this would be very nice. And the reason why I say that is because this is our only daily candle that was practically green in the last few days. We can see after that, right? Sell. And the next one is up here. So for us to really start getting nice, bigger confirmation reversals, we need to have a daily candle close, even just a little bit above 0.0144, right? Obviously, if we have a little bit more momentum than that, it's going to look nice because then we can just do a pump to the upside, have a retest off of this nice zone over here. We can see multiple rejections, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then obviously on the fifth day we sold off, but it would be in reverse because all those rejections would actually work as a floor now, right? probably have a little bit of a pullback here to then continue to go to the upside. That is what I'm really hoping to happen because you know what? Xcn has been doing very, very well. And I overall expect Xcn to continue to do very, very, very well. When we go to something like Bitcoin for just a second, we can actually see Bitcoin does kind of have a double top in the daily candle closes. So it's not the most ideal because it would still be nice to kind of be ping ponging, right? Bottom, top, bottom, and then have a higher top, right? Which obviously would help Xcn, but I still believe Bitcoin is still going to go to the upside, regardless of how we close, because I do believe in this context, the floor is more important than the roof, right? As long as the floor keeps on rising, then eventually we're going to burst through this roof. Not only that, but we do have a double top. That's perfect. So there is just liquidity waiting to get swept here by the market makers. So I believe that Bitcoin will have a nice burst to the upside over the next day or two to take out liquidity and to continue to go to the upside, which obviously means that the day that Bitcoin does that is going to be the day Xcn has a breakout, right? So, you know, we're going to have to see how Bitcoin plays out, but yeah, man, I'm super, super optimistic about this project. I am personally a very, very big fan of it. We can see when we go to the stats. Oops, what? I got mixed up with Zbeck and Xcn together, and I found some project that I don't even know what it was. It was like Zcn or something. Anyways, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, that we are ranked 122 in the world, 473 million market cap with 20 million volume. So very, very low volume actually, right? Very, very low volume, which low volume usually does indicate reversal signs. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the momentum starts to die, it starts to go flat, and the next thing you know, you get a huge pump to the upside. Ladies and gentlemen, just in case you were not aware, while this does load, we are still not listed on multiple exchanges. There's some very, very big ones. There's some very big and medium ones. There's some medium ones. And obviously, there's going to be a bunch of smaller ones that we're still not listed on. So a lot of upside potential, a lot of volume and spotlight potential for a project like this, right? We're going to see the holders, and we can see that we've been climbing very, very well consistently, even though we've been going down, right? Some days we go up 30 holders, some days we go up 40, some days we go up, 50, but overall we've been more or less, let's just say, averaging 35 holders, let's say 35 to 45 holders a day, which is not bad considering, the project has been selling off the last 2 weeks or so. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you know, don't get me wrong, I love seeing big numbers in terms of pumps and stuff, or not even pumps, but in terms of growth. But organic growth is always the best because when the project is growing while the price is going down, that means people see the value of it. People are saying, hey, this is a discount. This is a good opportunity to be getting in. And you know what? Objectively, this is actually a very good time to be getting in, right? Obviously, not a financial advisor, but if you are looking to be buying this project, I mean, now is pretty much going to be the best time. Yeah, sure, we don't have 100% confirmation that we're going to start bursting up and going to the upside, but when we look at something like the monthly, we know the sell candles have been dying off. So even if there's going to be a little bit of a dip, it's still objectively a fantastic opportunity to get in because this is a zone where we have to reverse because we want to keep a certain structure. So you could just gamble that we will, right? It's not like this is the end of the day, anyways. It's not like you're leverage trading. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But if you're just buying a project, I mean, you're buying it at some of the lower points within the last 2 months, practically, right? The last time we were also at these low points were in the beginning of July, and at one point, like middle of June. So pretty much the cheapest you could have possibly got it without going back all the way to April. So just think about it. Let me know what you guys are gonna do. Let me know if you're still stacking this project or you're just waiting for things to start moving. But yeah, that is, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.